Okay, let's get started. Thank you and welcome to everyone joining. Good afternoon to those of you in Europe, and good morning to everyone across the pond in America. I'm Matt Peacock, and I'm an account manager at DataMoran. I've been with DataMoran for about 2.5 years now, and I've assisted many companies on their materiality assessments and also on their ESG monitoring process as well. Also with me today in the workshop is Roxy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roxy. I'm an account representative here, and I've been with the company about a year, similar to Matt, helping clients with their materiality processes, as well as monitoring their material topics and emerging issues throughout the year. So really excited to have you all join us today.
Brilliant. So, I mean, as I'm sure you're all aware, the focus of today's workshop is on double materiality. We'll be going through what the concept is, how it's kind of evolved over the past couple of years since its inception. And we'll have a bit of a presentation on that. And also after that, we'll be given a demonstration on how you can actually put the concept of double materiality into practice through Datamaran. One thing to just mention is that we won't be going into the broader concept of materiality. If you do wish to know a bit more about that and how Datamaran can assist you in a materiality assessment, then please do get in touch with us after this workshop, and we'll be happy to have a one-on-one personalized call with you. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to go through some general housekeeping rules. On entry, as I'm sure you all noticed, you are muted, but we do encourage interaction throughout the workshop. And you'll notice that we have a Q&A at the bottom of your screen and also a chat box. So please do ask us questions. Hopefully we can answer them either throughout the workshop or at some time at the end when we have a room for those answers. If you have any technical questions or difficulties throughout the workshop, please get in touch with marketing@datamoran.com, and hopefully they can sort it out. And on our side, if we do have any technical difficulties at any point, please bear with us and we'll get that fixed. One final thing just to be aware of is the event is being recorded. So next slide, please. Before we get into the concept of double materiality, I just want to give it a bit of a background to what DataMoran is for those of you that maybe aren't aware. So DataMoran is a software as a service solution that uses a form of artificial intelligence called natural language processing to essentially analyze qualitative information, narrative. It's the only software solution in the world that identifies and monitors external risks and opportunities in this way. Now, what the machine is doing is it's analyzing various different sources, such as corporate reports, regulations, both mandatory and voluntary, online news, and social media. And the way that this relates to materiality is those sources represent different stakeholder groups. And the machine is looking through that text and identifying which issues are emphasized the most across those sources. So if we could go to the next slide, please. We work primarily with corporate leaders from the Fortune 500 companies. There are about 60 plus corporate clients that we're working with. The reason that companies using Datamaran's technological approach to materiality is they want a more robust, comprehensive, evidence-based approach to materiality as ESG issues become more integrated within organizations and become more important for them as well. The other reason that companies are using Datamaran is because they want a more dynamic approach to these ESG issues. As highlighted with the COVID crisis, the BLM movement, issues can very quickly change in their levels of importance, and having a real-time analysis, an ongoing analysis of these issues allows you to monitor how those issues change in their importance over time. We also work with professional services companies on their own materiality assessments, the likes of Accenture, Deloitte, and so on. Now, we have all these kind of experts that are using DataMoran for their materiality assessment, companies that have been doing them for many years, but we also have beginners. The platform is very easy to set up. And so if you're someone who has never done a materiality assessment before or hasn't done one in a while, then that shouldn't be a problem when using it. It's also worth just mentioning that we do have collaborations and partnerships beyond our clientele. For example, the two main standard setters, GRI and SASB. So if we could go on to the next slide, please. So the one just before that, sorry. So here, I just want to ask a poll to gauge your kind of awareness of what double materiality is. So you can see it popping up on your screen now. Are you aware of what double materiality is? Yes, no, never heard of it. And we'll give you about 10 or 15 seconds to give in your answers. Could still, okay, there we go. We have the answers here. And so interestingly, about 40% of you have said that you are aware of what double materiality is, but the majority have said no or never heard of it. A couple of years ago, we ran a similar webinar after the introduction of the concept double materiality, and about 36% of people said they were aware of double materiality. So it's interesting to see that that hasn't changed very much over the past couple of years, and hopefully we can kind of improve your understanding of the approach. So if we could move on to the next slide and close down the poll. Brilliant. So materiality can be confusing, and so I can understand how the prospect of double materiality might be quite daunting for some of you watching today, but that doesn't have to be the case. Technology can help to ease the process. It can do all the legwork for you, and also ensure that it's done in a more robust way. But what is double materiality? That's what I think everyone here is here to find out. Double materiality was introduced to the non-binding guidelines for the EU non-financial reporting directive back in 2019. And as part of that concept, it represents two different perspectives of materiality. The first of which is financial materiality. And this figure that you can see on the screen here is actually from the non-binding guidelines that were published. And it actually does include a definition of financial materiality at the bottom. You can see that when it comes to financial materiality, we're talking about how issues are affecting the value of the company. We're not just talking about the financial measures that are going to be recognized in the financial statements. The other perspective of materiality is environmental and social materiality. And this is looking more at how the company's activities have an impact on the environment and society that it operates in. Both of these perspectives have different audiences that they cater towards. So financial materiality is more that kind of traditional SASB approach to materiality, with the primary audience being investors, obviously interested in the impact on financial value of the company. And environmental and social materiality is a kind of more GRI, traditional GRI perspective of materiality, which is looking at a broader range of stakeholders, consumers, NGOs, employees, and also investors as well. Now, these perspectives may seem separate at first, but they are actually very much interlinked. And this is made very clear in the guidelines that we've been talking about. And the reason is because a company's external impacts can translate into financial impacts on the company's value. The way to look at it is that, for example, if a company is polluting or causing lots of damage to its environment. This can have detrimental impacts on the environment. Regulations could be put into place, long-term freak weather events, which penultimately are going to have an impact on the company's value. And this also ties into a concept of dynamic materiality that was introduced by the World Economic Forum towards the start of last year, whereby change in the levels of importance of the issues can take place, but also in the way that the importance occurs. So if we could just move on to the next slide, please. Now, as I said, double materiality, it came into fruition back in 2019, but it has stuck around. It wasn't a fad that's kind of gone away. It's still relevant now. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but the EU standards are actually set to be based on a double materiality approach. So essentially, double materiality won't just be for those who wish to be leaders of the pack. It's going to be enshrined in law. So it's worth taking into account now and preparing for that to be the case. Next slide, please. So clearly double materiality is a focus for those of us in Europe, but I know that a lot of you that have joined us today are based in North America. And you may be asking, how is this relevant to me? Does this impact me at all? And the answer is likely yes. What we have found is that other standard setters have caught on to the concept of double materiality. This is actually an excerpt from a white paper that came out just a couple of months ago in December 2020. And it involved the 5 main standard setters. And in this white paper, they are advocating double materiality as an approach. To give you a bit of an idea of what this figure is showing, you can see the grayish square. That's looking at more environmental and social materiality. What sustainability matters are having an impact on the people, the environment. And then the more purple and pinky squares are talking about financial materiality. How do these sustainability matters impact the organization's value? And how can these be monetized in any way? So what we expect is that with the introduction of this white paper, with the EU standards set to be based on double materiality, what we expect is that in the next year or maybe a couple of years, the uptake of companies taking a double materiality approach is going to significantly increase. If we can move on to the next slide then, please. And we have another poll that should pop up on your screen soon. So what we want to ask with this question is, are you considering a double materiality approach in your next materiality assessment? The answers are yes, we want to use double materiality. We are thinking about it. No, we aren't considering it. And this isn't relevant to me. There's still some votes coming in. Okay, and so interestingly enough, about 60 to 70% of you are saying that you either do want to use double materiality in your next assessment or at least thinking about it. And that is the way that we expect things to go for the next year or so. As I say, with the EU standards being focused on double materiality and the main standard setters advocating a double materiality approach. So if we could just go on to the next slide in the presentation. Okay, and so essentially what I attempted to do with this presentation is demonstrate to you guys that maybe weren't aware of what double materiality is, what the concept means, and also what you can expect in the next year or so with regards to regulations and essentially the uptake of double materiality. So that's the conceptual understanding. And if you do want more of a technical understanding of the approach, please do get in touch with us and we'll be happy to have, as I say, a more personalized one-on-one call after this workshop. But for now, I'm going to pass over to Roxy, who will actually go through how you can put this approach into practice using Datamaran's patented technology. So over to you, Roxy.
Thanks, Matt. And yeah, really excited to be here with you all today to talk about double materiality in a practical way. So we'll walk through together this dual approach to identifying your material topics. And I'm going to share my screen to get started now. Great. So as Matt explained, we work with companies across industries to gather and evaluate information, which then informs their strategy, risk management processes, and ultimately strengthens their engagement with their key stakeholders. So investors, customers, and employees. For those of you not familiar with DataMoran, I'll briefly provide an overview of the cloud-based platform. We can see here, we cover a variety of text-based sources, each represented in the platform as modules. So this benchmark module is where we house corporate reports. Every company that has an annual filing, be it SEC, financial, sustainability, you can analyze those there. The Observe module, we include mandatory regulations as well as voluntary initiatives. So frameworks such as the Sustainable Development Goals, along with Task Force of Climate Financial Related Disclosures. And then finally, we're also tracking social media and online news. So together, these sources provide a 360 view of the external landscape, allowing you to more deeply understand the different and evolving expectations from stakeholders. So your peers, regulators, NGOs, and greater civil society. But for today's purposes, we're going to spend time in the analysis module. This is where we'll perform our double materiality analysis, examining the issues from this financial material perspective and alongside the issues perhaps from a more environmental and social perspective. But before we do that, we thought it would be a fun and interesting exercise to see what companies are already talking about double materiality. And in order to do that, I'm going to navigate to our search module. And as you can see here, I'm going to search all corporate reports for the terms double and dual materiality. So, some examples below of other search queries you can include. In this case, though, I have saved a query. Again, looking for any mention of dual materiality, double materiality, and then this last query here is a proximity query. So looking for the term double within 5 words of the term materiality. So the results we can see here, perhaps not so surprising, a significant increase in companies mentioning double or dual materiality in their disclosures. As Matt mentioned, in 2019, when the Non-Financial Reporting Directive published their guidelines, since then the number of companies has increased, and we expect that number to increase in the coming years. So continuing on with our programming of how to perform a double materiality analysis in DataMoran. In order to do that, I will come navigate to the analysis module. And as you'll see, and we actually have another poll here. So we'd like to ask you, because for today's exercise, I'm going to walk us through a double materiality analysis for the healthcare industry. So we're curious to hear from you what you believe to be the most financially material topic for healthcare. So we'll give you all a few seconds to come in. Great. Okay. Okay, so the poll we've closed, and it looks like a majority of you believe product, service, safety, and quality to be the most financially material topic. So we'll just keep that in mind, and we'll come back to that when we go into our analysis, as then we will see the results there. Just a note on this page, as you can see, I have multiple analyses because this is my account. You can create different analyses either at a company level, an entity level, really aggregating and segmenting the data. That's up to you. So you're in control of that process. You can create an analysis based by geography, sector. But for our purposes of today, we're going to look at healthcare. Great. So as you can see, we have a matrix chart here. So this is one of the outputs generated by DataMoran, and this illustrates the 90 plus topics that we cover plotted against the X and Y axes. So it is a bit crowded, a bit busy, but this is, just to give you an idea of the scope of topics which are included in a typical materiality assessment. Our clients will cluster the issues and categorize them based on their unique approach, their culture, and again, objectives in terms of managing these topics and disclosing on these topics. So for this matrix and to perform a double materiality analysis, I've uploaded to the horizontal axes the financial disclosures of healthcare companies globally. So this is to identify which issues are perhaps financially material to a company based on the logic that financial reports serve primarily investors. So I can see what issues from left to right, from low to high, are perhaps likely to have an impact on the financial value of the company. Alternatively, on the vertical axes, the topics are plotted according to that broader set of stakeholders. So I've included sustainability reports from healthcare companies, regulations, Twitter, and online news. So in this way, you can then better understand the value system or environment in which the company operates. So now to evaluate and compare the two perspectives. In the quadrants, you can begin to identify any outliers or misalignment of issues. Again, this process of gathering evidence of what issues are material from either and both perspectives. So as an example here, we could see air emissions, biodiversity. There's a lot more evidence that these issues are material from the perspective of these multiple stakeholders, whereas it sits low in the threshold on the axes of financial disclosures. Another example in terms of what is maybe perhaps more financially material, something like responsible tax practices, sits on the far right, yet is ranked relatively low along this vertical axes here. These, as I'll kind of demonstrate shortly, these issues could change. Something like biodiversity, we know, could have increased attention, especially with the development of something like the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosure. But scrolling down here, and perhaps more useful for our analysis now, is our matrix table. So this is our scorecard. And what you can see here in the first column is our collection of issues. Again, these can be customized for your company. So in terms of grouping, relabeling these issues to suit your needs. Each column thereafter represents a source or stakeholder group. So that you can assign a specific weight to each, and then that's included for the final external score. Going through this first column here of the stakeholder perspectives, I've included the sustainability reports for healthcare companies. And by selecting the icon at the top of the column, I can sort the issues to understand from that perspective, what is the number one issue? Following along, I have mandatory regulation. Again, I can sort and we can see that the issue here is quite different than the other sources. Voluntary regulation, again, looking at, in this case, business ethics, climate change. And then we have news flow and social media. So once again, the scores across all these sources are averaged. They include the weighting assigned to give us the final external score representing that broader set of stakeholders, those issues which perhaps are more material from an environmental and social perspective. And then we recall that I uploaded financial disclosures for healthcare companies globally to the internal rating here. So if we can remember our issue that we thought to be most financially material was product and service safety, right? It was something. So we'll sort now and we'll see what the data tells us. Thank you. So in fact, it is actually employee incentives and benefits is the number one issue, perhaps from a financial material perspective. So I think, just clients use this to really make decisions based and backed by data. Closing the poll. So here we can see the two columns side by side. We can begin to address any gaps in this analysis. So back to looking at the external view, which is again representing these broader set of stakeholders, we can see some of the issues here ranked differently. Something like human rights, okay? Human rights ranks 4. We can see this is something that is ranked as 31 from the financial perspective. So starting to ask questions about, is this an issue that we should be addressing and are not currently? What are the opportunities here for our company? What are the potential risks? You can, of course, upload custom data to enrich the analysis. So you can include results from surveys, a feature that we do have available in the platform, to address further the impact of the issues as they relate to either and both the financial material perspective and the environmental and social material perspective. But in any case, I hope this is kind of demonstrating to you that this process of segmenting the data, evaluating what issues are material from this multi-stakeholder perspective alongside those issues presented in financial disclosures, this is where you perform this double materiality assessment. So now you want to manage the issue, right? So you want to develop a strategy around, what you'll do to manage this issue, develop metrics around it. So perhaps we find an issue where there's some alignment between the two perspectives. So product and service safety and quality ranked number 7 according to this external score, and then ranked as number 6 in those financial disclosures. So if I click on the issue, we are brought to our issues manager, and this is where you begin to break down your topics into factors. So really, being able to drill down and develop some of the metrics associated with your material topics, because we're looking at the healthcare sector, I'm going to filter out for that particular sector here. Great. And what we can see is on the far left, the factors of high, medium, and low importance. And then each of the factors which is fed into the product and service safety and quality topic. So kind of back to this concept of double materiality. We have each of those factors mapped to both the Global Reporting Initiative standards and the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board standards. So, you know, with GRI, we're really focused, their recommendations are really focused more on a company's impact and relevance to the environment and society. So I can click into these standards and I can begin to identify what measurable commitments might we as a company begin to develop for this factor and topic, product and service safety and quality. Alternatively, I could click into the SASB disclosure recommendations. Again, SASB is really focused more on what you know, topics are financially material for you. They're geared more towards investors and people who are looking for comparable metrics from a financial perspective. So we do have one more poll, final poll here. Once you've kind of gone through this stage, this process, how do you monitor your topics? So we'd like to ask you, you know, what do you think, you know, in this example here of the healthcare industry, what topic has changed the most and increased in the past 6 months? Great, and we'll getting some submissions still. Majority of folks saying climate change. Great. Okay. So we have 40% still with climate change, and then we have runner up here, changing consumption patterns. So you might be asking yourself, how will we check this? So what we can do is, navigating back to our matrix view, we have a feature in DataMoran that helps you monitor your material topics. So if I just come here to monitoring, and what you'll see here is the issues displayed from your assessment, where they currently sit in your matrix. How many ranks and change have they gone through in the past 6 months, and then what, or perhaps, you know, more importantly, who is driving that change? So clients really use this feature to spot trends and proactively address issues that they might not have seen coming. You know, as we've seen, issues are dynamic, and these insights can be used to inform decision makers, whether it's to launch a program or a campaign to address the issue. So here we go, changing consumption patterns. So that issue has actually increased in rank 10 times. So for those of you who said climate change, it was, you know, a good guess, but we see here actually, you know, the data is telling us it's changing consumption patterns. And so, you know, what are the key drivers there? Well, it looks like, you know, sustainability reports by peers in the healthcare industry, and then we also have social media as well. By default, this feature will show me the top 5 issues. I can, of course, look across all issues and what changes may have occurred to understand how they evolve. I can also click on the issue itself and look by source to understand how that issue has changed, either by rank or by volume. So level of emphasis within the volume of that source. Great. So yeah, it's I hope that we've really given you a taste of how you can not only perform a double materiality assessment using DataMoran, but then beyond that, really managing and monitoring these topics. So I'm sure we've gotten quite a few questions at this point. I saw some coming in at the very beginning.
Yep. So I saw that one of the questions that we got was asking what is the best way to visualize a materiality assessment that takes into account double materiality. Um, so I mean, one way to do that would be to visualize it like we did. To be honest, right now there aren't any kind of specific guidelines on how to visualize it. What really matters is getting that information, and then you'll be able to determine how you would use that. So, I mean, in the case of DataMoran, as Roxy demonstrated, we're representing financial materiality with the analysis of financial reports. Companies aren't really going to be including ESG issues in their financial reports if they're not deemed or at least perceived to have some kind of financial impact on the company. And then the other sources that we're analysing, sustainability reports, social media, news, and so on, are representing that kind of external outlook. But one way you could do it is in that matrix that we demonstrated. You could also do two different matrices if you want. There is no guidance at the moment on exactly how you can do it.
Yeah, there's I think to build on Matt's point, there's a lot of flexibility in the platform, and I think our clients have gotten a lot of value in the outputs generated to kind of either communicate these results internally or to inform sort of the reporting out to different stakeholders. So we're happy to walk through in a more intimate setting to show you how the platform works in that way and can support those different visualizations. So feel free to reach out to us directly and we can coordinate a call for that.
Mm-hmm. We've got another question as well. Can you see in the Q&A, Roxy? We've got a few, but the next one, do you want to give that a go?
Yeah, who in organizations besides sustainability professionals benefit from the insights drawn from Datamaran? Great question. So we are seeing, sustainability or ESG as a stepping stone, but these insights have been leveraged by cross-functional committees, teams across the enterprise, which include risk, include government affairs. Lots of information there that can be gathered and distributed to kind of build an organization's capacity to address these emerging issues. And as I said, it's also really, strategy doesn't change overnight, but, these insights can help inform, some sort of rollout of a campaign or program around perhaps social inclusion, as we saw it was an emerging issue in this example we walked through today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to add to that, we're finding that over the past year or so, ESG has become a lot more, as I said earlier in the call, integrated within companies and has kind of risen through the ranks in importance. Some of our clients, for example, ESG, the responsibility around ESG is held by the CFO, the chief risk officer. So ESG is becoming more important. Materiality assessments are becoming more scrutinized. And so we're finding that more than just beyond sustainability professionals, heads of risk are using the platform. As I say, CFOs, the people that are interested in this kind of data is developing as the outside world is developing as well. I can see another question as well. Are you also considering integrated reporting in your analysis? Yes, we are. Integrated reporting is represented by the financial reports. That's the way that we include that.
Yeah.
How long does a materiality assessment take with your software from start to finish? Typically it would take about 6 weeks from start to finish. And that's purely based on if you want to send out surveys, it's going to take time to get responses, defining which topics you want to include in the analysis. That's a very important step. But the actual analysis itself, clicking the button and getting the results, that's a matter of seconds. So if you really wanted a quick in and out analysis without including the surveys and other custom data that you might want to include, that can be a very, very quick assessment. We have quite a few other questions as well. We've got a few more minutes to answer those.
I see a question about the sectors. So again, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the inputs that produce the analysis. So we do cover all of those sectors, and you can choose which ones would be relevant for your company, because we do recognize, and a lot of our clients work and span across different sectors. So.
Mm-hmm. And so I can see a question as well, which is an interesting one. Can you explain how your clients use the monitoring after they complete a materiality assessment? So yeah, that's a good question. The traditional approach to materiality is going to be a project-based approach. You conduct a materiality assessment, you leave it for a couple of years until you update it. And obviously you still don't want to be doing materiality assessments on a very regular basis, because you need to set some kind of long-term goals. But with DataMoran, because it's so easy to just click a button and update the analysis, you can monitor for those changes in a kind of continuous way. A lot of our clients, if we're talking about kind of sustainability professionals, have sustainability steering committees and so on, which meet on a quarterly basis. And what they do is they use DataMoran's monitoring dashboard, monitoring functionality to actually be used within those steering committee meetings to essentially highlight whether issues have changed in their importance. And what they like about that is that it gives them leverage for strategic action. They can say that, hey, this isn't an important issue because of some stuff I read on social media, a bit of desktop research that I did. They can say that this triangulation of data from various sources is demonstrating this issue has changed in importance, and we need to start looking into it. It gives that credibility to start acting on some of the results that you obtain. So that's just one thing that is different about a DataMoran materiality approach, is you're going to be continuously monitoring those issues that you find as material.
I see a question as well for what is the expected time frame for either regulation or guidelines in the EU for double materiality? So I believe you're referring to the NFRD, so the non-financial directive, and that is actually already in effect. They are non-binding guidelines, however, are expected to make up the basis for EU reporting.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously non-binding guidelines, non-binding, but they're set to form the basis. Double materiality is set to form the basis of the EU standards approach. So it's something that's coming along down the line. Although it may not be binding right now, it will be soon. We do have quite a lot more questions, but I don't think we have the time to answer them. We're coming up to the last minute or so of the 45 minutes that we had planned. So if you had a question that wasn't answered during this workshop, please drop us an email, Matthew@datamoran.com or Roxanne@datamoran.com. We also have LinkedIn as well, which you should be able to find, and we'll be happy to answer some of these questions, because we have got quite a bit of an influx, as I can see.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we will be happy to follow up with any of you. So again, really a pleasure to see so many join about this important topic, and looking forward to seeing you all online.
Thanks for joining, everyone.